Welcome, Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Excuse me. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Refracted Curvature, 10th Man, Neil, Brian's Logic, Chocolate Sane, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Gilded. So welcome one and all.
Good morning, good morning.
Hello, good afternoon.
Morning.
There was almost some discord really early on in this conversation. Almost.
We're going to let it slide for the first month. If somebody accidentally calls Gilded Discord, I'm just giving you a pass. We're not going to correct it. 1 month. Anyway, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curve.
Nobody claims the horizon's Earth curve.
But
are you talking about the differential between eye level and sea level and the angle that you draw between that?
In reality, that is where they have derived the notion of us having an Earth curve from. The differential measurement between your eye level and the flat plane we actually dwell atop. Would you like to expand upon that a little bit further, please? Refracted curvature. Paul.
Well, they kind of give it away in their diagrams when they call it sea level, don't they? Because the horizon would be at sea level, would it not? It's where the sky meets the sea.
It kind of makes sense.
Level.
It appears, but yeah.
Yeah, right. So it appears, you know, I can't even, it sounds so silly to even, so like between that flat plane, the sea level and your eye level, where you're not on the ground and lined up perfectly, there's always going to be a slight depression angle between your eye level and sea level. That's not Earth curve. That's two flat planes.
I'm half tempted, that's why there was a short pause, to almost forego the rest of the housekeeping questions to get into something that I was really excited about you saying, and it's the Feast of Nonsense on the globe side. But it's nice that you've just said what you've just said to lead us in with it, because it's almost like a new Feast of Nonsense discussion topic. Hey, Adam, how you doing?
Afternoon, everyone. Hope you're okay. What's the new Feast of Nonsense?
When we got here,
This...
let me tell, because I know you just said it, but when we got here, as a flat earther, you were trained like a little dog to repeat certain phrases that you gobbled down at the Feast of Nonsense. Can anybody know, or can anybody name the parroted nonsense flat earth claim that I'm talking about in this regard?
We see too far.
No. Try again. The horizon. I think that was chocolate. Was that chocolate?
The horizon rises to eye level.
The horizon rises to eye level. Is that true, John?
No, it does not.
So why would we be
differential baseline?
Why would we be trained to say it? Well, the devil is in the detail. The differential between the flat plane we stand upon and the 90 degrees to vertical that you see if you take your eye line gives you the difference that they have derived the curve from. Right, now go, John.
Well, see, on and the piece of nonsense on the other side of the fence, they say things to make that question when you ask it, because they'll say the horizon is a geometric obstruction when you first get there. It's blocking things with its geometry, but that's like first level. And you can measure it. How could it not be real? You're measuring it, So, but it's like it's the other half of the argument. It's like when you first get here, depending on which side you stand on, you're trained with a different load of nonsense to say in rebuttal to the other.
But you know what it is, though? At that point, you're starting to actually pay attention to perspective, which is, in a way, why I understand why people say that, even though it's not true per se. But I understand why people say it, because that's the point when you start paying attention to what's going on, as with perspective, because you don't really pay that much mind to that once you first get into this. If you're a globe head, you know what I mean?
Right.
Well, that's hold on. That's what you did, but these are parroted talking points. So you're not really. It's kind of knee-jerk reaction. It's more like your heart beating than it is you thinking about a question to ask.
So we're
Sorry, you have something wrong there.
Go on, Brian.
I have to make a correction. I'm sorry. No, the horizon rising to eye level, that was not part of the Feast of Nonsense. Sorry, Feast of Nonsense. The original claim was the horizon always appears to rise to eye level. It was the ballers that changed it, took out the word appears, and started asking flat earthers. So the horizon rises to eye level, and flat earthers go, yeah. And then
that's actually a good point.
No.
That's what was happening.
Just hear John out again in terms of him explaining why the word eye level incorporated with it rising and the word horizon is definitely Feast of Nonsense. Just go through it one more time, John. I'm not decrying what you've said, Brian, and I get what you say.
Right. Based on your height above sea level, the differential between your eye level and sea level, those two flat planes, that angle of depression can be measured.
The magic trick of saying the horizon rises to eye level is taking the plane that we see, and they're taking that differential from versus eye level, and calling it a geometric obstruction. So you've already got the line of your geometric obstruction, the line of sight to the horizon when they state it, rising to eye level. Well, the eye level is where you get the differential from. Do you see the distinction?
No, I understand all that. I even made a video about this. I think I was possibly the first person to call it out back in 2017, early 2017, because I was saying it before that. But because I remember the original statement. The original statement is a statement of fact that the horizon will always appear to rise to eye level, but it's not at your eye level, because your eye level is a horizontal, and it's making a parallel with another horizontal, which will be sea level.
Fair enough. I didn't know that. We normally joke about Brian figuring these things out a long time ago because it's like a neg because he's smart and he does figure these things out quickly. So when we joke about Brian having said it 2 weeks ago, this is one instance where we're not going to knock him. Like, no, kudos. Because, yeah, it's taken me a while to get this to this stage in that regard. So if you were there at 2017, then more power to you, because we were arguing about the Isle of Man and reifying the horizon on their behalf at that stage. So well done to you.
Well,
yeah, and I'm not looking for kudos. It's not. Sorry, 1 second, John. I'm not looking for kudos right now. I just want to make the point that saying that the horizon rises to eye level was something that was added, that was given to us by the opposition. Because our statement originally was, and you can go back into Eric DeBay's videos from mid 2015, that the horizon always appears to rise to eye level, and that was the claim. They changed.
No, does it?
I will just say that the geometric horizon, prior to the black swan, was apparent by nature as well.
Yeah, but by definition, it always was. But their horizon you're explaining is part of the geometric limitation to your view, and that's fed to you when you get here as a anti-flat earther.
Right, but the appearing to rise the eye level or does rise the eye level, either way, it's playing into their hand because that's the way it's meant to go.
Either
No,
way,
I thought
it's
you-
incorrect.
I
The reality.
I don't remember them ever actually acknowledging the horizon to be apparent before the black swan, though. Like, did they use? I mean, I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But did they use did they even use the term apparent horizon before
No,
the black
no.
swan?
No.
No, right?
It was just horizon. Apparent's already in horizon.
I was gonna
So
say
when
they
you say
didn't need
Yeah,
to.
I get that, but I'm saying they didn't start making that distinction, even though it's ridiculous, until after the black swan.
But the distinction is, you're correct, because although it's inferred that you can see it, because the word apparent includes seeing it, it appears to be there, aka apparent. But there's a distinction that's not being addressed before they started calling it apparent, and in so doing, they undo their original claim, because, as John's said from the start, they're claiming it's a physical geometric obstruction. So when you say apparent, what you mean appears but not actual? No, they're saying it's geometric.
Right. And by calling it apparent, they've stripped away the geometry, which is supposed to be there, which is not there, which is why they all of a sudden now it's not there, because it's supposed to be at 1.22 miles away from at a 1 foot observer height. And that seems to be a problem.
But that was all pre-sextant education days. Now, post-sextant education days says that when you're lining up your horizon mirror on the sextant as a mariner at the sea horizon, how tall or how much are you as an observer above sea level? That's the dip correction, because you're going to get an obtuse angle. And you need to get a right angle. So the whole point is you make a correction for the height of eye above sea level so that your baseline is horizontal. So that's the dip. That's the Al-Biruni dip. He gets on the mountain. He has a depression angle to the horizon. And if he wants to know, that's an obtuse angle. They call that Earth curve. But he measured the mountain using sea level. And then he changes it when he gets up there and says, well, that baseline I got to get to the mountain, I'm going to throw that away and say it's curving away from me.
Right. But what it's doing in actuality isn't what's deriving the values for sphericity. The differential between the two planes actually does give you the maths. That's what John's trying to drive at.
Right, but at the end, you minus from 90. So there's no curve.
Right.
No, there never was. But that's the trick is to, use the. I think Adam called it one time your sphere of vision. But you see in every direction. You're seeing in angles really, and turn that into a shape. And all you do is have angles. It's like when they ask you where's your dome, it's because in their model they have a dome. It's the personal dome, but that's a flat Earth model too. And they don't ever address it. But the celestial sphere is two flat Earth dome models, just one flipped upside down and stuck to the bottom of the other.
Yeah, but that's the arc of your vision, the way your eye works.
Adam's just about to present it. Hold on 1 second, guys. So this is a good thing about being about 7 years into this argument, isn't it, Adam? Right, on you go.
This is just, I suppose, what you told. This is me taking the
You get a bit closer to your mic. You're a bit quiet.
Yeah, sorry, it's in the corner. This is just a little bit of analysis from looking at those dip to the horizon angles and then comparing it to curvature. You can see they're not the same specifically, but what you were talking about in terms of the differential between those flat planes, that's exactly what the way I kind of imagine it, and the best way I can see that they have derived it in Bowditch's tables is the differential of the two flat planes. I don't think I've got it on here, but I showed you guys the picture. As you go higher, you can see further, and therefore your point of rendering of the horizon in the eye moves in terms of it's not a straight linear relationship. The relationship you develop is this curve we're seeing here. As you can see, this curve fits very well, close to 8 inches per mile squared as well. So that's the bait and switch that we're talking about, but it's just appreciating that as we go a foot higher, we see a little bit further, but the foot and the bit we see further are not one-to-one. So as we go to 10 foot, it's not, I can see 10 foot further. And it's that change of relationship that creates this curve, shall we say. That makes sense?
Right, and it's back to a curve plotted out in the graph in terms of the differential view of your horizon of your vision versus the flat plane that you've raised up from. And you plot it out and it gives you a curve. But it's not actually going to give you a circle, because it's more like the squared function. Is the yellow one, or whatever colour it is, the brighter coloured one, the squared function?
No, they're all. Yeah. The which one is 8 inches?
You're gonna have to get closer to your mic again. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I'm just looking. I think it's the yellow one that's the standard 8 inches. But
Right.
I'll look quickly.
But that doesn't develop into a sphere, does it?
No, and more fundamentally, we never mentioned surface. So to use this graph as a surface representative it's data taken from your eye as to where the horizon renders. There's no mention of the surface at all. You might get a curve, but it's a curve on that data, not on the surface, because you never mentioned or referenced the surface. Not one data point relates to the surface.
But you can take those data points, this is the differential between the planes, and turn them into the top line, which is 8 inches per mile squared, which is their claim of your view of the surface. So you've got this, what your eye does versus what the surface does. And what you're measuring is that differential, and what's being described after the fact is the curve of the surface that you haven't got.
Back to my point, when you do all the corrections, thank you, Adam, that was wonderful, you still have to minus from 90. And 90 is a perpendicular. And especially in navigation, it's a right angle. So the whole point is you got to have a horizontal baseline. So it doesn't matter what the graph says. At the end of it all, you minus from 90, your elevation angle. So the surface has to be flat.
Well,
Perfect.
now the graph has practical uses. Like if you don't know your height above sea level, but you're capable of getting a 90, you could back calculate your height above sea level. I mean, if that's what you really wanted to do from that differential.
Right.
But it's still the differential between two flat planes.
Exactly. You can rearrange the maths and then give you your height if you're trying to solve for height. But it's the same equation, just reordered. But that is still reordering an equation that is a differential between two flat planes, the surface level and your eye line. Now again, we'll say it one more time just to reiterate the point, because I'm sure this penny won't drop for a while with certain people. It didn't for me. It did for Brian. Kudos. But ultimately speaking, that's what we're describing when we say they've taken the differential between two flat planes. It's not that the horizon rises to eye level. The horizon may appear to rise, but you're extending your vision. That's going to alter what you see of the ground, as opposed to it being used in a curve mathematics to describe the ground as curving.
Hang on,
Ooh.
Nathan. The differential between two flat planes, two horizontals, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the navigator with the sextant aiming at the horizon when he's 10, 15 feet above sea level. He's got an obtuse angle. He needs to correct that. It needs to be a 90 because he's got to subtract the elevation angle from 90 to get the complement, to get the zenith distance. And that would mean the GP of the star or luminary that's used in navigation tables, all the way to the GP of the observer, the two zeniths, that is a radius of the circle of equal altitude. That must be straight, flat, horizontal. So one is you're 10, 15 feet above the ocean and you're sighting the horizon at sea, and you must do height of eye correction, dip correction, so you get your 90 to subtract your elevation angle from. The other one is when they say, I don't need the sea horizon, I'll just pull out a bubble sextant and create a false horizon, an artificial horizon, and get my 90 that way. I said, well, you still need a 90, right? I mean, that's what they do from the airplanes. They don't use a sea horizon. They just use a fictitious one and get a 90. Well, you need the same one that's when you use the sea. So you're just verifying the surface of the sea is flat from GP to GP.
Right. But what I'm saying, though, is when you measure that angle, when you're using the sextant, and it's below your eye level 90 to the horizon, that is what they're graphing and turning into Earth curve.
Agreed.
Right. So you're
I
not
think-
talking at cross purposes. I'm glad you summarised that so beautifully, because I wouldn't have done so well. Yes, indeed.
It's a very clever mathematical trick, and I will give them. I don't even know if it's a trick. They may have tricked themselves.
Maybe.
Thinking they're too clever.
That's not divine motivation. It's not relevant. What we know is how it's done and what has been done. And I hope we go over this indefinitely. Keep highlighting how the trick's been done.
You can fool yourself if you reify the horizon into the leading edge of a ball to think that the figures you're given describe Earth curvature, as opposed to how the horizon renders based on height across a flat plane.
Well put. Beautifully put, actually, Adam. Well put.
I just want to say that when the aeronautical, I call them, navigators in planes, they are still using the horizon. It's just that because the horizon is so far away from them, it's easier to use a bubble sextant and just make a line that appears to align up with the horizon. With the horizon, because the horizon, see, what happens is the horizon stretches out. Let's just say the sea level that stretches out from underneath you the higher you go. So that's why it always appears to be rising to eye level. So for them, the horizon is at eye level, but it's easier to just use the bubble sextant in that scenario than to be trying to do some kind of height of eye correction when they're dealing with an altitude and not a definite. Like on a boat, you might know, yeah, I'm 35 foot above the water on this boat, and I'll be on this boat for 2 months, so I always know I'm 35 foot above the water. Whereas when they're flying with altitudes can change. Even within 10 minutes, they might have to change their altitude for different reasons by a small bit. So to get their angle correct, it's easier just use the bubble sextant. That way they don't have to do height of eye correction, but they're still looking straight at the horizon, because the horizon is basically sea level, and the Earth has stretched out from underneath it at such a distance that to them it appears to be at eye level.
Agreed. I think where 10th's trying to drive at is that what are you correcting to and what are you correcting for? Well, you're correcting to a horizontal baseline if you do the correction. You're saying, well, you can negate that step, and I'd agree, but that still includes his further point, which is to say, why are you doing this? What's it for? Well, it's to acquire a circle of equal elevation with a radius that's straight and flat. So in either event, if you're going to start by saying I've got a tool that negates the need to correct to the surface level, so I can draw a circle around my GP of the star, well, if I just overcome that step by using this tool, I don't have to correct. But even if you do correct, what are you correcting to? Well, you're correcting to the surface level that's flat, so you've got a 90, is 10th man's point. I just don't want you to step in, because I think you're recognising that people are not necessarily giving your point all its credence. But then that links back into dip correction being hijacked into the mathematics of the differential between two flat planes. So this does all interconnect quite nicely.
Yeah, I'm not going to defend or feel I need to defend anything here. I'll just explain what the celestial navigation books describe very clearly. There is, well, Adam, if you got it, put it up. To dip or not to dip, that is the correction. Well, with the bubble sextant or the artificial horizon in the form of a pan of Mercury, if you're landlocked, there is no height of eye or dip correction required because you already established a horizontal. When using the actual sea horizon, you're 10, 15, 20 feet above it, you must establish horizontal. So the dip correction only applies to that time when you're using the actual sea horizon in order to go from an obtuse angle to a right angle, which the other two give you automatically, which is sufficient right there alone without any more to say you're living on the flat plane. It's over right there.
Yeah, I'm not trying to argue that. I'm just saying that it's at the moment you use the sextant, you've not got a perfect 90 because you're above sea level. So that's, you correct for that, and you got your 90.
What? No, you don't. There's no dip correction if you're using a bubble sextant.
No, did I say bubble sextant? I meant sextant, not bubble sextant.
Oh, you said bubble sextant, or unless I misheard you.
Sorry. No, if I said bubble, I didn't mean bubble.
Mariner
I meant
sextant,
just
fine.
a
You
sextant,
just
yeah.
misspoke. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're going to correct down, so you've got 90. That's what you're doing. But you can only be correcting to 90 if it's flat. So it's flat. And there's nothing really more to say about it. How you'll be utilizing it, how you'll be measuring it, how you can only be measuring it, given that you're measuring an angle from it, it has to be and cannot be anything other than flat. That's flat.
Can I tie this back to the original point?
Yes, please. That would be great.
The Feast of Nonsense, after the point about the horizons, argued, then you point out, as a Glover, you would point out that the angles you measure are greater than 180, implying that, there's a geometric obstruction in the way yet again, because you're not talking about the differential between two flat planes. You're asserting there's a tangent to the horizon. Sorry about that.
Right, but a tangent to a horizon isn't measuring an angle from the plane that you need to be measuring and utilizing. So when you're measuring an angle, you're measuring it from a baseline, as opposed to a sphere edge single point tangent. So while you might be able to rearrange the question that we ask in the housekeeping, which I might just ask now just to get it into the actual formatting. So any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline.
No.
So why do they respond with, we can draw a tangent to a presupposed spherical Earth whose measurements have been taken from flat Earth angle measurements? They're not adding that last bit. But to a tangent point assumes something that isn't going to give you a derivative baseline to take an angle measurement from. So it's non sequitur. Am I wrong?
Well, they're trying to make your eye level be the baseline with that, because once you get the angle to it, then you can pull angles.
Hold on. But as we just discussed 3 minutes ago, you're not going to be doing any dip corrections that could reference a line to a tangent point, because, as I explained to Brian, it works both ways. Well, you're not going to be taking that step. What dip correction? If you've got a bubble sextant, there's no correction to make. So to say, well, I'm taking a tangent to a sphere, no, you're not. You're establishing a horizontal with your tool, and then you're measuring an angle. There's absolutely no requirement for any sphere or tangent in that whatsoever.
Right, but the trick is is to use your eye level as your baseline. Is what they're trying to do is make eye level your baseline from then on out. And
Finally, we
ignore
get
the
there.
ground.
So would it not be quite useful for us to be asserting that the horizon, which on their side is assumed to be a geometric limitation, rises to eye level?
It plays perfectly into that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I appreciate this is where I wanted to get to, because I've been hesitant to move on, because Brian's like, no, it's been altered. If you listen to DeBay's careful phrasing of it, well, DeBay's a smart guy. I'd expect him to understand this interpretation based on what a horizon is versus what it's claimed to be. And yeah, you know, he's obviously ahead of the game too, but the fact that DeBay's phrased it as the horizon appears to rise to eye level, as opposed to what we got parroted. Well, I personally, I won't speak for everyone in this instance, what I got parroted to me at nausea was, you guys say, stereotyping fallacy, the horizon rises to eye level. That's what I got back at me. I mean, maybe I'm unique in this. I don't know. I'm sort of hesitant to say it now because of you, Brian.
Yeah, but that's because the ballers changed it. That's what they did.
Yeah. Oh, maybe you joined the conversation late. We're talking. Maybe I should have made this really clear. I will now. This conversation started with the premise that we're going to talk about a slightly different feast of nonsense. I didn't clarify this enough. I should have done. So
I know the globe feast of nonsense.
Yeah, but that's what you've replied with now. You're like, well, yeah, but that's what the Globers feed to you. But yeah, well, that's what we're. Okay. Shout out to Elvis. My God, that's a difficult name. Kuforvic. Cufurovic. I'm sorry to have butchered your name, Elvis. But here you go for some more scamming. I'm getting called a scammer by Super Chat again. Okay, we'll get to Jaron. We'll use him as an educational tool shortly, Elvis. But he says, here you go, some for scamming. He means some money or Super Chat. And then a googly face. Love you, Nathan. You guys rock. Thank you very much indeed for the Super Chat, Elvis. Kuforvic.
No, Kufurovic.
Kufurovic. Oh, thank God Arwin's here. Thank you, Arwin.
It's Eastern European, I think.
Very nice when you say it. When I say it, it sounds like a total mess.
You know this globe feast of nonsense? That's one of the things. If the presentation, if I have it ready for Friday, I mentioned to you, that's based on their feast of nonsense. Part of their feast of nonsense, because they were fed a load of rubbish as well.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. Yeah, that was what I was just trying to. Let's calm down, Nathan. Take a breath. Yes, Brian. Thank you.
I know. I was listening in. I knew what it was you were talking about. But the horizon rising to eye level is just a straw man of the original claim. But it's a straw man that was taken up by flat earthers.
But we accept that DeBay's language was still incorrect, though, yeah?
No, he's saying DeBay's language was correct. No, I just want to expand upon. Before we get to that. Yes, Brian. Where your point takes hold is sort of 2018, 2019, where everybody in the flat earth community has heard it so often that they start saying it themselves. And I think your point is that originally, no, it weren't said like that by flat earthers. You know, even DeBay was saying it in the correct way and saying it appears to, correct? Yeah,
but it was changed by the ballers very, very fast. This is my point. It was around 2015.
Not your point, it's my point. It's John's point. I know you did it in 2017, but this is overall, the inspiration for this point has come from John. And I've gone, globe feast of nonsense. So, yeah, let's just get this. This isn't going to be John, you thinking of this 2 weeks ago. Sorry. It's definitely the inspiration from a couple of days ago from John.
I know, I don't disagree with that. I'm just pointing out that the claim. I'm just pointing out that the ballers strawmanned that claim that the horizon always appears to rise to eye level. They strawmanned that in 2015. They started strawmanning that immediately in 2015. Immediately.
If this would have been prior Black Swan, my response to the difference between the horizon appears to rise to eye level and the horizon does rise to eye level is if you're saying it appears to rise to eye level, horizon already has a parent in it. So the apparent position where the sky meets the ground appears to rise to eye level.
One of the things we had back in 16, and shout out to rest his soul, Stan Smith, who's passed away, but he was one of the guys that did this with 3D cameras, all sorts of stuff, and looking at this. And one of the first things he challenged from a flat Earth point of view was, no, that statement of DeBayes is incorrect as well. The horizon does not appear to rise to eye level.
Finally, what have we been talking about this whole time? The dip. That's what we've been talking about. So literally by measurement, it does not do that. We're talking about correction for the dip. Al-Biruni's measuring the dip. So it's incredibly useful if there's an assertion, which does come in one form or another from the flat Earth side, that the horizon appears to or does rise to eye level, when you can measure dip, right? What's their assertion for their R value? Al-Biruni's dip measurement to the horizon. Their Earth curve geometric horizon, I might add.
No, I go completely against what Adam just said. No,
what are you talking about? He's got the concluding point. Oh, don't disagree with that.
The horizon does appear to rise to eye level. I will never, ever, ever in a billion lifetimes go back on that, and I can show it and prove it.
I can show it.
We're not debating about the legitimacy of the statement. We're talking about how
I have celestial navigation proven.
I think you
no, celestial navigation proves exactly that it doesn't appear or, in fact, actually rise to eye level. That's the point of the dip correction. It's an admittance that it isn't rising, that the higher you go, the more you have to adjust. That's the point of celestial navigation, stating quite categorically with the adjustment that it is not rising to eye level. Every time you ascend in elevation, the adjustment is different.
Yeah, except for on an airplane where they get Polaris at 0, which is on the horizon.
No, that's different. You're
at
talking
the equator.
about no,
it's not.
Wait.
No, it's not.
Being at 0.
0 is not above the horizon.
I realise that, but the point is that that's your elevation angle, including the horizon, to a star you can't see. Therefore, you're counting it as 0. Yeah, fine, but you're saying that both lines are running along next to each other, aka 0. But you've got two things still in that.
0
in that
for the Mariner.
I'm nearly there. You've got two things in that description if you're going to describe that as an elevation angle, aren't you? Still two things in it, even if you describe it as a 0. Both lines are on top of each other. So you've still got the horizon in that. Well, to have the horizon in it, to assert it as an elevation angle of 0 to Polaris when at the horizon, you've still got to have used a tool that has one or other of those two corrections in, one correction in one or other method, two methods. So you're either going to not do the correction, in which case, yeah, I know where you're going with this. You're talking about bringing it back as you rise, which doesn't happen with the stars. Fine, that debunks it as a geometric horizon, but doesn't alter the fact that if you're taking an angle measurement, you're still establishing a horizontal baseline, that's one line, and then saying, where's the, oh, it's just gone. It's at 0 in the air. So I understand your point's still valid, and nobody's disagreeing with you, but what you have done is kind of now diluted the overriding point, which is in Feast of Nonsense on the globe side context, which is that the assertion on, in either event, horizon rising to eye level is simply incorrect. And Adam got to the conclusion, and you kind of ruined that a bit. But we'll be discussing this a lot more in future, so it doesn't matter too much.
That's what Adam said. Adam said a horizon appearing to rise to eye level is incorrect. No, that is not incorrect.
Yeah, it is.
It's not.
Oh God, you're gonna die on this hill.
Can I add
how
something?
Come then from an?
No, you can't. Brian's going to get to die on this hill. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. No, I won't die on this hill. Right. Not only do I have pilots and navigators on airplanes seeing Polaris at 0, which is on their horizon, right? But I've been in airplanes looking out, and I could see both sides of the both windows. I made a point of going down in the middle aisle and looking out both windows so I could see out the windows. And the horizon was even above my oil line at that point.
Okay, let's see if I can appease you. If I say, in a very non accurate way, i.e. what just is generally appearing to you, and you're putting context of apparent in that what generally appears to you, which is fine, the horizon looks like it's at your eye level. Okay, that's what you're generally driving at. However...
No, Brian's just shot himself in the foot.
I know he has. You go ahead, Adam. Go on.
It rises above the eye level, does it, as well?
It appears to sometimes, yeah.
I'll rest my
So
case.
actually appears that to actually be above your eye level.
I'll rest my case then.
Yeah, it appears.
Appears to rise above the eye level. So the horizon
it appears to rise
appear
to eye level.
always
Is the
rise
same.
to eye level.
I've seen it. And when I was flying over Nevada,
We heard that, Brian.
Brian.
You're rumper singing with a repetition and not
I will
letting
take-
the actual point he's concluding on get heard. So he's saying, if you're saying it's above eye level, that's self-defeating. Therefore, didn't appear to rise to eye level, appeared to rise above it. He's saying, I rest my case.
No, yeah. The point is, it's not a physical location.
No.
It appears.
That's the second-
Appears, not
No.
actual.
Okay, we
That's
got
the
that.
side point.
But in actual terms, in realistic terms, when you get down to the
keep going,
minutiae, when you
Aaron.
get down to the debating points, when you get down to arguing about it with maths involved, people are going to want it in an accurate term. And we're going to talk about how we look and measure the horizon, regardless of whether we know it isn't assumptively physical or otherwise. And why would we have a difference between what you look at when you're measuring it with the mariner's sextant versus what you look at and is above that when you establish it with horizontal in the bubble? Well, why is there a difference? Because it isn't rising to eye level. Ergo, the statement is false and parroted by flat earthers and originating from Feast and Nonsense on the Globe side, which is where John interjected, or you in 2017, I forget which.
You're actually
Well,
contradicting yourself. I don't know.
Well, wait.
Hold on, I had Eli first. Go ahead, Eli. Don't do it to me, man. Don't be that guy.
Your eyeball isn't the same as any other kind of lens, though.
Yeah, it is.
Your eyeball is your eyeball, and other stuff is other stuff.
Use of
Profound.
lens.
Really? Who else wanted to get in on this? No offense, Eli.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if I could establish a level at any altitude, who's to say that when I look straight out, I don't have the same exact experience of the horizon as I do if I was at sea level. Like then my experience with my eyes would be exactly the same.
It might be. You might rise up and have certain conditions in
Moving
the
away
air
from
that
the point.
change it and make it rise a little bit more than it would, and it ends up looking exactly the same. And yeah, so what? What's your point?
Well, I mean, the description of rises to eye level would come from that experience.
Yes, and in general terms, it generally appears to do so. But we're not talking in general terms when we're talking about measuring it and claiming it as Earth curve on the globe side, or debunking it as being beyond the physical measurable limits. And they, in terms of physical and measurable and arguable about, and what we actually debate, doesn't comport with the statement of it rising to eye level in literal terms.
That's also true.
That's the point we're trying to make
Right.
here. That's what me, John, and Adam are trying to get to.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, yeah, they're two separate things. So Brian, what they're saying is correct. It doesn't mean that what you're saying is wrong.
This isn't against Brian.
I know
Everything
it- I
Brian
know
said
it,
is
I-
correct also. Nothing Brian has said has been wrong so far. He's got.
No.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I understand.
You follow.
See, mathematically, it's not at your eye level.
Right,
but
there we
it
go.
appears
Okay,
to be.
perfect. So that's
I
what. But that's
already
what. But
know
when we
that.
debate,
It's like,
when we debate, Brian, please, please, Brian, when we debate, we get into getting out the tools, doing it accurately, how well have you done your maths, how much do they overlap? This is what we get down to. It's not, well, it kind of appears to, though, in general terms. When I look out the window of that ain't how we debate it. I don't mean to shut you down in this way, but I've got to.
Yeah, but no, you're completely. I actually cannot believe this. You're completely missing the point.
Here we
The
go.
point is, when you're not there with a theodolite or with a sextant or whatever, and you're looking out, right, from a cliff or from an airplane, the horizon will appear, depending on, like, unless there's bad weather, a lot of fog or something, the horizon will appear to be at eye level. But if you measured it with a sextant or maybe even a theodolite, then you're going to measure a dip to that horizon because your eye line is above the sea level, which I was barking on about since I think it was I'm saying this since 2015. I made a video in 2017. I know that. My God.
Okay, chill.
Brian,
We're friends here. Easy now.
the sextant is an optical measure.
Okay, come on, Brian. Go ahead, John.
The sextant is a tool that uses your eye. Your eye is how you take that measurement.
Absolutely.
Well, Nathan, what happened to the whole profound sound effect?
Yeah, well, you got to think of it in context of everything else that was just said.
Sometimes the obvious might need a profound sound effect because the penny drops at that moment. It just, sometimes you miss the wood for the trees.
Well, I mean, obviously, anybody who wears a pair of glasses, like, you're gonna see the difference in the angle of what you're looking at. You're looking at something and it appears in one place, and as you descend the glasses onto your eyes, it's gonna appear like it's higher or something like that. It's like, okay, so what?
Did you miss all the stuff leading up to this?
Yeah, it sounds like it. I don't know how to respond to that. What do you want me to say?
Well, how? It's not like I missed it. All you did was come roundabout to say, well, we use our eyes and we use our eyes to look
It's
through.
not a simplistic point that he's making in that comment, right? John and Adam, for that matter, and Brian. We'll come back to this. This is something we're going to discuss in more detail because it starts with that differential between two flat planes, it being graphed out into something that looks damn near close 8 inches per mile squared when you put it on that graph. And it's the expanse of the rendering of the horizon to you as you rise, as opposed to the physical limitation to your view based on an Earth curve assumption that's come from that graph. Now, from there, you can talk all about dip angle corrections and measuring this and how much will it move towards the horizon, etc., etc. But ultimately, we are qualifying how we've gone from having a flat plane to being able to describe with a squaring function the ground versus the rendering of your view. And that's what this differential between two flat planes is. And that's the main focus of the point. But in so doing, it exposes a certain statement that both flat earthers and globe earthers hold up as a straw man in terms of what we would say about the horizon when you can, and therefore it's got behind by flat earthers, and I'm not saying you're that flat earther, you just happen to be in this instance, Brian, say, well, in a general terms, it does rise to eye level. Now, if you want to sit through probably about 8 hours or 6 hours of myself and Ranty going through this on his show with one of my, who was it that we did it with? God, my brain's gone blank thinking of loads of other things. Who was that show with when we covered the horizon rising to eye level?
Good times for all.
Not good times for all.
Life is short.
Life is short. It's one of my bloody Patreons. I'm really sorry. So, Life is Short went over this in such exquisite detail. But there was a point in the show, maybe 5 hours in, where he's summarized this. He's like, look, in general terms, the horizon does rise with you as you rise in elevation. So it kind of is a correct statement to say it rises to eye level. But by the same token, it doesn't, because of how it's being rendered to you in terms of your vision, its expanse as it increases as you raise. But he's gone through 3 hours of describing perspective effects as he gets to that stage. And it's that end of the scale that's focused on when you're in debate, as opposed to what you can easily get behind when Brian is correct in saying, as a general statement, the horizon rises to eye level. I don't need to say appears, because that's in the definition of the horizon itself. but it's what the horizon is and how it's skewed in the debate by each side when it's a vague statement that's promoted by flat earthers in that regard, and then the minutiae of the measurements. Yeah? The quantitative values that are going to be ascribed to these things when reified, in this case, the horizon. What have we got there? The differential between two planes. Your 90-degree at eye line, whatever altitude you may be, excluding all corrections if you're establishing that with a tool like a bubble, versus the flat plane we dwell atop. So you can see the importance by where I've stressed or put the right intonation in this final summary, hopefully for this show. We'll see. Where are we at? We're at 51 minutes. My God, this time's flied today. What a great show. I say it myself. It's my show. I shouldn't do that. That's very big-headed. We've got 10 minutes left, so great.
There's just one, all of that debate, though, and I think this is where I like my little ditty. It's conflating that horizon and what it's for, what it is. Yeah. But I'll read the ditty because to me this is why we compose this, just to differentiate what these things are for and what they're to. Because all the use of the sextant is to get that angle, elevation angle, that is relevant to the flat surface that we dwell atop. So, to dip or not to dip, that is the correction. Whether it is nobler for the sextant to suffer the limitations of artificial horizons or to take the eye against the sea of troubles and by opposing end them, to define a level.
I'm tearing up a little bit, emissary. Tearing up.
Indeed. So as this shows,
I have a little video.
Oh, go on, Brian.
Yeah, I just showed this little video. I won't play it, right? You can just hopefully see it. I may have to play a second of it, just so people get it, the gist of it.
Oh, this makes me feel sick going up this way. I like this one.
Hey, no colour commentary. Let Brian make his point, please. Go ahead, Brian.
How much of it can I play, Nathan?
Well, just don't play it at all. Just use your mouse and put it on the bar and click along to the various bits that you want. There you go.
Yeah, but this is what you won't see it. I just play it in 10 second increments. So I'll play it till 0017. It's at 007, okay?
Stop. Okay, you can probably make your point with that much footage. What's your point?
The point is that the horizon appears to be at eye level, but it's not.
Yeah. Okay. That's
No, because this is where the switch and bait is in the word appears. One group's interpreting it appears to be roughly at eye level, or the horizon appears because it's apparent. And now I can agree with it if it's apparent, but it doesn't. To me, I might be being pedantic, but it's not appearing at eye level. That is a statement I would disagree with. Yeah, it is apparent at eye level-ish. Yeah, but it's not. It's not a geometric thing. It's not doing that. And if you watch that little bit of tower, that horizon is forming and reforming as it goes up. So I would still have to disagree because it's about being not supporting whether or not Eric DeBay was right back then with his nuance. Can you make it correct? It's about what is correct now. And neither straw man that the flat earth or the ball earth we're presenting is correct. We've discovered that and we know why. And in doing so, we discover the switcheroo and the shenanigans as they try to make this apparent position of the horizon into the surface. So I have to disagree to be correct to get to the point of understanding today.
Well, I don't know how else to say it from a... Someone else wants to say something there.
Well, let me say something quick. If it's the horizon by definition is apparent, Isn't apparent the same as appear? And if it's appear, it always appears at eye level, except if it's like vision is obscured, like there's a fog, or it's too far to see, then it will appear to dip as a result of not being able to see far enough.
No, that's not what appear means. Apparent means not actual in this context.
Okay, so how would we word it better?
Yeah, you'll get into big trouble with this.
The way to word it better is the horizon does not rise to eye level. It adjusts on a ratio based on the observer's height above the flat plane of which he's viewing.
What's the horizon?
Exactly. It's a point of optical
It's got a
resolution,
definition. It's on screen. It's the point where the sky appears to meet the ground in this image.
So the word appear.
Appears
Not
to meet.
actually.
No. I was very specific. The point where the sky appears to meet the ground. That's what a horizon is. So by definition, inside the definition, I've got the point where the sky appears. Let's put my mouse on it. That's where it appears to meet the ground. Simple.
But does the sky ever meet the ground?
No.
It's not accurate.
No.
Yeah, but the horizon appears to be at eye level. But is it at your eye level? No.
No.
Unless
Right.
you're in the water and your eye line is at the water. And I mean with your nose below the water.
So then the horizon does not rise to eye level unless you put your eye in the water?
No, it appears to rise to eye level.
Wait, remember Adam said we don't have to say appear, because by definition the horizon is what is it? Appear, apparent? Like what am I supposed to say?
The horizon by
So we can just
definition
say
is
the horizon.
apparent. So because the horizon by definition is apparent, you don't have to say the horizon. You could say the point at which the sky appears to meet the ground rises with you.
The horizon.
All right, but that's
is
also using the
apparently at
definition.
eye level.
Can't we just use it without the definition? The horizon is at eye level, and then you look at the definition and you get further understanding what that means.
But it isn't, because when you come down to the nitty-gritty of arguing about, you're measuring the differential between it, and they're claiming a dip to it, and they're even deriving an R from the dip to it. So no, it isn't. That's what we're trying to labour. We've got a few more minutes.
Yeah, but they're adding that stuff in there. Not in the definition.
that-
Any of that stuff they're saying is not there. They're conjuring up.
That was the initial feast of nonsense point of all of this, is that we first started off opposing their statement, but we should really just as happily oppose ours now. Not worrying about it, not ashamed of it. We figured it out to make the actual truth known. There is no more confusion. There's no more ambiguity about whether or not what the horizon's doing. Is it exact? Is it not? We understand what forms the horizon, how it appears, why it appears, and that relationship between height and a flat deck. We understand that now. So I'm happy to say both viewpoints are incorrect because we now hold the correct understanding of it.
Goodness.
Well,
All this
no,
brought
that was the
clarity
whole
to
point
the
of-
Globers too, as well, didn't
Hold
they?
on, guys.
Because then
I want to
after
end
the
on a
Black
quantum
Swan,
eraser.
they-
Hold on, guys. I want to end on a quantum eraser moan. Go ahead, QE.
Goodness, this is painful, guys. You need to find yourselves a girl. And speaking to that guy climbing up that pole, he needs his head examined.
What this is what this is
I say I
Kiwi
want to end on
turned
a
the whole
QE note.
thing because he wants to talk about something else. That's what's going on.
Thanks for that
No.
brilliant end to my show, Brian. Really appreciate it. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. Another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels and all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
what a day! What a lovely day!